Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I'm going to be sharing my first impressions of the Pathfinder Remastered core books. To date, the Player Core and the Game Master core books are currently available, as you can see here, with the Monster core book coming out sometime, I think early 2024, I believe, and a Player's Core Book 2 coming out in the summer of 2024. Now, the GM Core and the Player Core that you see here, these books were sent to me by the folks from Paizo for the purposes of making some videos on, so I do want to thank them for sending that along to me. However, as is always the case, they are not scripting or pre-screening the video or dictating what gets said in it. The opinions that I express are 100% completely and totally my own. But the first thing I want to do before I get into any of this is just the kind of a cool aesthetic and something that I really love about the Pathfinder series of books, and that is their cover art with the players, with the core rule books, all having depictions of like the heroes fighting, doing this battle against dragons. Really, really cool. We got the Red Dragon in the original Pathfinder first edition core book, which is somewhat recreated in the second edition Pathfinder core rulebook, although we have some of the different iconic characters. Here we have the fighter and the sorcerer attacking, whereas here we got the ranger, the rogue, and the cleric. Then on the and then on the playtest, the Pathfinder second edition playtest book, they're actually battling a white dragon. However, we do have the fighter and the sorceress again, along with Fumbus, the goblin alchemist, which was really cool to see. And then on the remastered player core book, we have our heroes again, some of the same heroes from the front cover of the original core book. So we have our thief, our cleric, our ranger, but we also have the witch, which is a class that is included in this player core book, but was not included in this core rulebook, and I'll talk a little bit about that more in a second. But the other cool thing is that for the Game Master book, instead of heroes fighting dragons, because you're the Game Master, this looks more like a villainous character who is allied with the dragon. So that's just kind of really cool to see. But I just love the visual different, like the similarities, but just the differences in each of these covers. And I thought it'd be sort of a cool image to see just all of the Pathfinder core rule books covers sort of combined together in one shot. But we'll just move these out of the way here, and we'll get to the subject at hand. Now, this is not going to be like a complete flip through or anything like that. It's just going to be sort of my impressions based off of, well, I just got the Game Master core book today, so I haven't had a huge opportunity to go through these yet. But the first thing that I want to say is, like, I've seen some people discussing online the decision for Pathfinder to create the remastered books and how it's no longer part of the OGL, and there are some mixed feelings online about it. Personally, I have been on the record as saying for years now that I would really love to see Pathfinder and Paizo in general move towards their own creation, right? They move towards their own system, something where they're not relying on the gaming license of another company. And I know, like, that we had the whole OGL fiasco, and I'm not going to get into any of that. But personally, I think that it's something that has actually benefited the gaming hobby, I guess, as a whole, because we've got so many other companies now that were stepping up. We're creating their own open gaming license. Free League is releasing their own open license. I think Modifius was also releasing their own license. I can't remember if they were or not. I think they were. And I know that, like, Chaosium had something that they were going to be releasing as well. So, and a lot of these companies started getting a huge increase in revenue and sales. In fact, for Paizo, they sold 8 months worth of inventory in just a few weeks. So, like, there was really difficult for quite a while for people to be able to find their, like, the core rulebook specifically. But some of the other resources as well were really difficult to come by. So personally, I am so glad to see that Paizo is moving towards their own open gaming license, their ORC license, as they're calling it. And yeah, I mean, this is definitely, I think, overall is going to be a step in the right direction because it sort of distances themselves. It gives them their own sort of identity now. And yeah, it's still a D20 mechanic, but that's a pretty common, like, you can't really copyright, like, dice rolling mechanics. But yeah, it's just something like I said, years ago, I actually did a video on this channel talking about how I would hope to see Paizo remove themselves from the OGL and create their own thing, and how I thought second edition Pathfinder was already their first step towards that. So I feel like this is speculation, but I do feel like this is something that they were looking to do eventually, and they just ended up having to move up the timetable on it. But anyway, the one thing I will say that is a bit of a criticism that I have, just from a personal level, is I do wish that the player core rulebook and the game master core rulebook, at least initially, I wish that they would have been one book like they've done in the past. One of the things that I always loved about Paizo and Pathfinder, even though I wasn't really into Pathfinder First Edition, was the fact that you could get the player's information and the game master's information all in one book. It's a cost cutting thing as well because you're not buying 3 books to get started. You just have to buy 2. Whereas at this point now, we're going to be having to buy the player core, the game master core, the monster core rulebook, and likely the player's core book too as well. So you're needing to buy a bit more books. Now, a lot of other systems obviously have a player's book, a game master's book, and a monster book as separate things. And truthfully, I've seen a lot of people online complaining for some reason that I can't fully grasp, but for some reason they were complaining about the Pathfinder books having the players and core and the game master stuff all together. Now, I guess maybe like players might metagame or feel like they need to flip through and read magic item descriptions when you're trying to keep it secret. Like I can kind of get that. I can also appreciate the fact that a 600-page core rulebook is going to be very overwhelming and kind of intimidating to beginners. So I do understand that as well. And considering what they've actually done with the Player's Core and the Game Master Core rulebook, I do kind of have a better understanding now of why they split it into 2 separate books. Number one, this is a near 700-page, or nearly 800. Sorry, it's nearly, yes, I think it's nearly like 700 pages now, sorry, between the 2 books. So there's actually a greater page count in this Player Core and this GM Core than there were in the original second edition core rulebook. So they've actually added some material. Now with the player core book, what we have is a combination of the core rulebook and the advanced player's guide. So there's some information, there's some spells, there's some feats and abilities from the advanced player's guide, and there is the witch class, which was not in the original core rulebook, but was in the advanced player's guide. So just taking a look at the player's guide really quickly here. And again, we're not going to go through everything. And I did sort of touch on this on my character creation video for the Pathfinder 2nd edition. First of all, I love the inside cover art here. This is something that I was really happy to see them actually do something with. Like their Starfinder books all have artwork on the inside. So it's just really cool to see, again, the thief and the wizard sort of doing their thing there, fighting off some ne'er-do-wells, some brigands or whatever what have you here. But the one thing about the player core books in particular is they're actually splitting the player's core information from the original core rulebook and the advanced player's guide stuff. So, for example, we are reduced in the number of classes that are available in the player core 1. I'm just going to call it because there will be a player core book too. So what we have is the bard, the cleric, the druid, the fighter, the ranger, the rogue, the witch, the wizard. Now, what's interesting about this decision is that you have 4 spellcasting classes, each with their own dedicated magical spell list that they draw from. Tradition, that's the word I was looking for. So the bard, for example, they draw from the occult list. The cleric draws from the divine list. The druid draws from the primal list. And the wizard draws from the arcane tradition spell list. Now, with the witch, on the other hand, you have one class that, depending on the choices that you make, could draw from any one of those 4 lists. So depending on your witch's patron, for example, who the witch is gaining their powers through, will dictate which spell list they draw from. Sort of similar to the way that a sorcerer's bloodline would indicate which spell list that they would draw from in the original second edition core rulebook. And personally, I like the idea of having the witch as opposed to the sorcerer. Because the sorcerer felt similar enough to the wizard, and it's felt like that from, at least for me, for a long time anyway. It's always kind of felt like it's just a different take on the wizard, whereas the witch class, they have their hexes that they can cast. They have their like cauldrons that they can create stuff out of, and they derive their abilities from a patron who accesses or who grants those abilities through a familiar, which is, again, just kind of a cool thing to have. So the familiar is actually sort of like the spell casting focus, I guess you could say, or where just the powers come from for the class. And again, you get sort of, depending on which patron you choose, it does give you different lists to draw from, which is really cool. I also like what they did with the ancestries and the heritages. So we have the dwarf, elf, gnome, goblin, halfling, human, the leshy, which is like the plant-like people, and you have orcs in here as well. Let's just see if I can find the page with the information on them here. Again, I don't want to go through a complete flip through. There's also a really great breakdown on how to create your character. So this is a very beginner-friendly book, and this being exclusively player-focused and player-oriented, does make this a lot more welcoming, I guess, a lot less intimidating for your new players, right? The new people getting into the hobby. So let's just see here. We got the goblin, and again, you got quite a few feats here for the different heritages or ancestries as well. So like I said, we got our leshies, including like quite a few iterations of them as well, or heritages, more so than what you would have had just in some of the, like, it sort of combines all the ones that I think we've seen so far. My favorite is still the gourd leshy, which they can store items in their head, because like where the head is on the body, or what you perceive as the head, isn't actually where like their brain or anything is located. So it's just sort of this hollowed out, like basically like a squash looking thing on top of their head, with like eye holes, almost like a carved jack-o'-lantern, and you can just store items of up to one bulk. You got the cactus leshy, which has an unarmed strike that they can do for piercing damage, because they are a cacti. You've got the seaweed leshy, so they have a swim speed, which is kind of cool. They do get less on land, but they do have a swim speed. You have the lotus leshy that can actually walk on the surface of water. So there's just some really cool stuff there. And again, you got some really neat abilities for the leshies as well. And then we also have the orcs here. And again, you got quite a few different types of orcs. But then we've got our versatile heritages, which is really cool to see. You have the changelings, which are actually the descendants of hags mixed with other ancestries, and you can get different abilities based off of which type of hag you were spawned from. There's also the Nephilim, which are sort of like your outsider type of mixed or versatile heritages, so they can be basically similar to like the Aasimar and the Tiefling, although those terminologies have been changed and dropped from Pathfinder, because that was part of the original OGL. But that's sort of what you have there. And then you just have the half-elf and the half-orc. And which is really great about the half-elf and the half-orc, is that they are now a versatile or a mixed ancestry. So you can apply them to other ancestries and not just be forced to be part of like the human ancestry like they were before. So it's just kind of cool that they have that. And again, some really cool classes in here. I think they did a pretty good job with their list. It's not as many classes, but the other thing to keep in mind is with Pathfinder Remastered, it is backwards compatible with previously released second edition Pathfinder material. So if you've got a group that's playing with characters taken from this player core, but you have somebody that wants to play an alchemist, or wants to play a barbarian, or a sorcerer, or a monk, you can still play those from the original core rulebook, and it'd be perfectly fine. Those classes will be appearing along with the other player classes from the Advanced Player's Guide, will be appearing in the Player's Core book too. But other classes that we've had released in like Secrets of Magic, in the Book of the Dead, Guns and Gears, Dark Archive, those are all fully backwards compatible. You just have to do a little bit of conversion on some of the terminology. For example, spells are no longer done by level, but they're done by rank, which is effectively the same thing. It's just they're, instead of a first level spell, it's a rank 1 spell. Instead of a 5th level spell, it's a rank 5 spell, but you still get them sort of the similar way. Again, it's just sort of distancing themselves from some of the terminologies from the OGL, and just kind of like trying to change things so that you're not using the same word for a whole bunch of stuff. Like level was used a little bit too liberally in things like Dungeons and Dragons, for example, where character level and spell levels were different, and then you had dungeon levels, and then you just had all kinds of things that you had to worry about with that. So I do like that they've changed some of the terminology. Positive and negative energy have also been changed. Like negative energy is now called void, and I forget what the positive energy is called. So let me just see if I can find the heal spell here, and that will make things a little bit clearer. I just forget the terminology, and I'm going to be honest, I'm probably going to mess it up quite a bit. Like, I've already used the term level a few times. I guess vitality. I guess vitality is the one. Or holy. But yeah, it's just, again, kind of cool to see. We do have void there for the harm spell. But again, magic works pretty much the exact same way. Some spell names were changed. So magic missile was changed to force barrage. Then you have things like Mystic Armor instead of Mage Armor, but a lot of it is still the same. However, there's also some really cool stuff in here, and I'm not going to go through absolutely everything, but I will show you my absolute favorite spell that I found just going through and reading through this book, and that would be the spell Mad Monkeys. So it is a rank 3 spell. It has a range of 30 feet. It's a 5-foot burst, and you sustain it for up to a minute. So you do have to spend one of your actions each round to sustain it. But it basically, magical monkey spirits fill the area as they pile and climb on top of one another. Because the monkeys are magical spirits, they can't be attacked or hurt. Casting calm or similar effects over the monkeys makes them docile, causing them to cease making mischief for the duration of Mad Monkeys. Choose the kind of mischief your monkeys make when you cast the spell. They produce the effect listed for that mischief when you cast the spell, and the first time each round when you sustain the spell. The first time each round when you sustain the spell, you can move the area of the monkeys by 5 feet. So they can do flagrant burglary. So the monkeys try to steal any one item from one creature in the area. Use your spell DC minus 10 as the monkey's thievery modifier. So basically, it should be the same as your spell attack roll, truthfully. But you use your spell DC minus 10 for the monkey's thievery modifier. Their attempt relies more on distraction than subtlety. So the victim knows what the item the monkeys were trying to take and whether it was taken. Getting a stolen item from the monkeys, even for the caster, requires stealing it from them or disarming it. So you can get the monkeys to steal stuff for you, but you actually have to steal it from them because they're not just going to give it to you. I don't know. I just love it. The other one is the raucous din. The monkeys screech loudly, potentially deafening creatures in the spell's area. Each creature must attempt a fortitude save. On a critical success, the creature is unaffected and is temporarily immune for 10 minutes. The success, they're just unaffected. On a failure, the creature is deafened for 1 round, and on a critical failure, they're deafened for 1 minute. And then there's tumultuous gymnastics. So the monkeys jump and climb all over creatures in the spell's area, interfering with complex movement. Each creature in the spell's area must attempt a reflex save. A critical success, the creature is unaffected and temporarily immune for 10 minutes. On a regular success, they're immune, or unaffected, I should say. If they fail, for 1 round, the creature must succeed at a DC 5 flat check whenever it attempts a manipulate action. If it fails the check, the action is disrupted, and the critical failure is as failure, but the monkeys cling to the creature tenaciously, and the effect lasts until the spell ends, even if the creature leaves the spell's area. So yeah, there's just some stuff like that that I just absolutely love in the Pathfinder Remastered Player's Core book. So that's just, again, really, really cool to see. And then we've got the Game Master Core book. So this one's a little bit thinner. This one is 400 and... Actually, yeah, I guess it is almost 800 pages worth of stuff combined. So this is over 450 pages, and this one is over 330 pages. So this is about 460, I think, and this is 330 something. It comes out to like just a few pages shy of 800 combined. So you're getting a lot of information within these two books. But again, we've got, again, some really cool artwork here with our player characters attacking this creature, which I'm not as well versed in Pathfinder monsters, so I don't know exactly what creature that is. If you know what it is, let me know in the comments below. I know I've seen it in one of the bestiaries, but again, still really cool stuff. But what we have here is just, again, information on running the game, creating adventures, campaigns, encounters. And I will be doing a separate video talking about the encounter building that they use for this book, because from just sort of glancing at it, it does seem like a pretty cool system. You do get some information on the different Age of Lost Omen stuff, so regions, cultures, creatures, religions, factions, nation settlements, and the different planar structures. But then we got the subsystem. So this, again, is sort of taken from the Game Mastery Guide. So we had the victory point system, and I know I've talked about this before, but I love the victory point system. It's something that I've used in homebrew adventures for years and years and years now. And one of the first examples of a victory point system that I can remember was actually in Dungeon Magazine. I think there were some other books that had it as well, but I'm actually in the process of running the Savage Tide adventure that has victory points involved with it. So I'm in the middle of running that now, and it's going to be interesting to see how things kind of shape up. But yeah, again, I love the victory point system, and you can use it for all kinds of different things like infiltration, reputation, I guess research and influence. There's also rules on engaging and challenging individuals to duels, including spell, like mage duels, which is really cool. Hexploration, vehicle information, then our magic item stuff. Yeah, again, just a really, really cool book. But the opening chapter, chapter 1, is just sort of, again, just a really good a series of advice for, especially for beginners. Like, this is going to be a really useful section to help get beginners really comfortable with ideas of how to run their games. And I think overall, it's just absolutely fantastic. So again, a really great book here as well. It's got all your magic items and stuff that you'd want. Again, we've got leadership information, the different things like where's our duels. So here we got the duels. And what's really cool is when you enter a duel, you can actually use unique abilities that you wouldn't normally have, as long as you can sort of meet the requirements of them. Like, so you can do bullying press. The triggers, you attempt a melee strike against your opponent, but you haven't rolled yet. The requirements is that you're in a duel and that you're trained in intimidation. And you rolled an intimidation check for initiative this round. So unlike normal combat, duels actually have initiative rolled at the beginning of each round. So things can sort of shift based off that. So again, it's just a really cool system. You can sense weakness. You can sort of deceptive sidestep. So it just gives you some new stuff that you can throw in there. And I've had a few situations where enemies have challenged the players to honorable combat, where like their strongest takes on the player character's like strongest in a one-on-one battle. So it's kind of cool to actually have some more rules specifically for that in the core rule book. So overall, I think that these are great books. And if you're looking to get into Pathfinder, but you don't necessarily want 800 pages of information to sort of begin with, splitting this up into two books does make sense. It's not the direction I would have gone in. But again, an 800-page book would have been really overwhelming, so I guess I kind of get why they did it here. I do hope that in the future, if they release, or when they release Pathfinder 3rd edition, that it does go back to the core rulebook and then just the bestiary as the only two things that you need. But, we'll see. I mean, Paizo's a business. Businesses need to make money, and splitting the core books might make it easier for them to generate sales, because you have people that want to play as players but don't necessarily want like that large of a book. They can just focus on the player core books. So I don't know. I think it'll make things a little bit better that way in terms of revenue. But yeah, I think that these are still some really great books. I'm really impressed with the player core book. I'm looking forward to the Player Core Book 2 when it comes out. And again, you can't have something with like Mad Monkeys and not just absolutely love it. The GM Core Book has some really great stuff, especially for beginners. It does have like updated magic items, which include errata and stuff like that as well. So if you are looking to run Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and you have the original core rulebook, you are looking to get like the player core book for your players, but you're not quite sure if you want to get the GM core book. Everything is backwards compatible, but I would say that is something that you may want to consider at some point, picking up the GM core, just to have everything being internally consistent, and not needing to do like the basic conversion work that might go from the original core book into this. But if you are a beginner, if you are just getting into Pathfinder now, or just getting into tabletop RPGs now, then I absolutely recommend, if you want to be a game master, that you get the GM core, because there's some really great information on how to handle like sort of like the group dynamic with your players, making sure that everybody gets an opportunity to do something, sort of addressing the fact that it's really easy to slip into the habit of giving the player that's the most vocal the most spotlight. There's just stuff on handling downtime and other stuff. It's just filled with a lot of great information. And yeah, I mean, this is the new version, the updated version of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So if you're a beginner, then this is where I would recommend that you start. And if you're like me and you had the original core rulebook, then this is something that you may want to consider updating to, especially the player core book. Like I would say, if nothing else, pick up the player core and sort of go from there. But I think these are both fantastic books. I mean, Paizo's quality is always top notch, and I don't think you're going to be disappointed either way. I think they're great, and I'm looking forward to, like I said, to the Monster Core book and the Player's Core book too when it comes out, when those books come out next year. And you better believe that I'm going to be getting the pocket editions when they come available as well, because they're also releasing, whoops, didn't mean to bump the camera there, they're also releasing in 2024. Anyway, let me know in the comments below, have you picked up Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remastered? I will be doing a few other videos over the next little while, going into some of the more detailed looks at some of the sections of the book. Like I do want to do an encounter building with the GM core book, and I might do some more character creation stuff. Or I might look at some specific spells or feats or whatever. If there's anything that you have for suggestions, let me know that in the comments below. Thank you once again to Paizo for sending these books my way. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me, and it means the world to me for each and every one of you that's taken time out of your day to click on this video, even if it's only for a few minutes. It really does mean a lot to me. Anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I will see you all next time. Until then, take care.